Good day, everyone. My name is LaToya Deneen Love, and I am a grad student at Kaiser University. Today, I will be taking you guys on a journey with my presentation that is called Measuring Intelligence in Infants and Young Children. In this slide, you will see I have a couple of visuals that pertain to intelligence in infants and young children. The purpose of this presentation is to educate readers on measuring intelligence in infants and young children. This presentation will cover various information, such as the importance of measuring intelligence in young children and how it is currently applied in today's society. Historical information pertaining to the topic matter will also be provided to give readers a better understanding of the history of each test. This presentation will then go on to discuss some of the most frequently used intelligence tests on children, along with a description of the purpose and typical settings that they are administered in. Lastly, the presentation will then transition into discussing ethical, cultural, and societal issues that may be associated with the test that will be described in this presentation. This presentation will now begin. From the time that they are born, infants have to learn many things as they adapt to the world outside of their mother's womb. From sucking bottles to recognizing objects, bodily movements, sounds, and much more, it is no wonder that researchers have shown a great interest over the years in infant intelligence. Intelligence testing of infants is important for many reasons. One main reason, in my opinion, is to ensure that they are developing normally. There are many little tests that physicians give infants, such as hand and eye coordination, and many other tests to ensure that they are developing normally from an intelligence standpoint. Intelligence testing can also reveal possible learning disabilities that can be present in some infants. Therefore, these tests are crucial to rule out any type of developmental problems. Now that we have covered some information about the importance of intelligence testing of infants, let's move forward and discuss the role of environmental influences on intelligence testing. Did you know that social environments can have an impact on test scores? I conducted some research to support this information. I came across an interesting case study that was developed by Dr. Gilliland at Northwestern University. Statistics have shown that infants who have healthy maternal attachments, along with being in a positive social environment, tend to score higher on intelligence tests than infants who do not have healthy maternal attachments or are not in healthy environments. Just as with infants, intelligence testing with young children is just as important. As children grow from infants to toddlers, and toddlers to school-aged children, many milestones are reached from an intelligence standpoint. During the school-aged years, young children learn to broaden their vocabulary, read, write, recognize colors and numbers, and continue to develop social relationships with their peers and families. Intelligence plays a role in many of these things. Intelligence testing of young children can help determine if they are developing normally, reveal if they are considered gifted, and reveal learning disabilities such as autism and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Therefore, intelligence testing is vital and important to determine the development of young children. In this slide, you will see an example of an intelligence test being given to an infant. This is actually Fagin's infant intelligence test scale. Intelligence tests seem to be more focused on older children and adults many years ago. However, things changed, and researchers became more and more interested in infant intelligence. There have been many types of intelligence tests that have been developed over the years. It was during the late 19th century when the infant intelligence test made its debut. Darwin and Preyer were philosophers who showed a great interest in intelligence, and they started a movement which made studying infant intelligence influential in the United States. These tests became very acceptable in the early years of the 1930s and proved to be stable, valid, and reliable. In the next slide, we will go into detail about some of the popular intelligence tests that have been developed for infants and young children. The Fagan test of infant intelligence is a popular test that I would like to discuss on this slide. After extensive research, I came across the actual manual, which had a wide array of educational information about this particular test. For many years, although researchers were interested in infant intelligence, there were challenges faced when it came to developing a reputable test. Methodology had advanced in such a way that it paved a way to show that infants could, in fact, do things like convert data, retain, categorize, and retrieve information that was visual in nature. It took over 20 years of researching the visual perception and memory capabilities of children to develop the Fagan Infant Intelligence Test. Fagan also devoted 10 years to the development of a test that could detect deficits. One thing that I found very interesting about this test was its ability to declare how a child may perform intellectually later in life. Another interesting fact about the Fagan Infant Intelligence Test is that it also provides information about the causes of mental retardation in some infants. Some of the settings that this type of test is used in is mainly clinical settings. In this slide, you're going to see a picture of two men. On the left side, this is the great philosopher Alfred Bennett, and on the right side, this is Theodore Simon. Now that we have learned a little bit about intelligence testing and the importance of them, let's move on to discuss some of the pioneers that developed intelligence tests. Alfred Bennett, who is pictured on the left, was a pioneer who showed great interest in intelligence, and with this he made amazing contributions to the field of psychology. It was during the 1890s when Bennett partnered up with a man by the name of Victor Henry, and they began to study what they called, quote, individual difference. As modern psychology became the new science, Bennett believed that it was important to study intelligence. According to Nicholas and Devine, quote, he argued that modern intelligence tests ought not to study not the mind's simplest functions, but its most complex operations. Bennett conducted many experiments, and he hypothesized that higher mental processes are what make people individuals. Bennett went from experimenting with just 2 children to receiving offers from groups of people that wanted him to conduct studies on them. Theodore Simon, which is the other pioneer pictured on the right-hand side of this slide, was another important pioneer who studied intelligence. Simon began to make his mark on the field of psychology in the year of 1903 with his organization called Ministry of Education. Through this organization, Simon was able to develop and administer survey and perform examinations that could detect possible mental retardation in children. Simon and Bennett later joined forces and developed what they call the Bennett-Simon scale of intelligence that we will be discussing a little bit further in the next slide. Now take a look at this slide. You'll see an example of what is called the Stanford-Bennett intelligence scale on the left. You see that there's different categories, and then you'll see a scale of numbers. There are now 5 editions of this intelligence scale. When Simon and Bennett first developed this scale, there were a total of 30 tasks with heightened levels of difficulty as each task went by. Between the years of 1908 and 1911, this scale was revised for the first time, and clustered tasks were added and broken down by age group. Lewis Terman, a professor at Stanford University, became the first person in the United States to revise this scale in the year of 1916, and it was during this time that the scale took on the new name of the Stanford-Bennett Scale of Intelligence. There are now a total of 5 revisions to this test, with double the amount of tasks and many other features that were not featured on the original one. The latest revision of this test took place in 2003, and it includes scales that are both point and age format. 2 of the main settings that this type of intelligence test is administered in include school and clinical settings. Now that we have learned about the history and the importance of intelligence testing, along with seeing an example of what some of these tests may look like, let's move on to discuss some ethical, cultural, and societal issues related to intelligence testing. Throughout this presentation, we learned many good things in regards to intelligence testing. However, there are some ethical, cultural, and societal issues that can be related to intelligence testing. The first test that we discussed was Fagin's infant intelligence test. As we learned, children who have good maternal attachments and a positive environment typically score higher. The issue with that is that some cultures may not bond with their children the same way. Therefore, this could cause cultural bias. Another issue is that placing the child in an environment that is not secure or safe can lower their scores, and some parents could feel discriminated against because they may be at a poverty level and are providing the best possible environment for their baby. These are just a few limitations that could be associated with intelligence testing of young children and infants. Another issue is that different children all around the world learn differently at different levels. Therefore, these types of intelligence tests may not be suitable for all children, although both of the tests discussed in today's presentation show high validity and reliability rates. This is the part where we bring this presentation to a close by drawing a conclusion. This presentation covered information in regards to measuring intelligence in infants and young children. The presentation began by discussing the importance of intelligence testing in young children and infants. This presentation then transitioned by discussing the rich history of intelligence testing. 3 important pioneers were discussed, including Dr. Fagin, who became famous for developing the widely used Fagin infant intelligence test, along with Alfred Bennett and Theodore Simon, who became famous for developing the Bennett-Simon scale of intelligence that is now known as the Stanford-Bennett intelligence scale. Lastly, this presentation came to a close by discussing some, but not all, of the ethical, cultural, and societal issues that could arise from intelligence testing. It is my hope that my audience enjoyed this presentation, but most of all, found it very informative and very educational.